Spare. Skinhead. Skinhead, skinhead, running through the night. Skinhead, skinhead, looking for a fight. If you want to watch a compelling movie about skinheads, watch Romper Stomper with a slimline Russell Crowe in it, playing Hando. Set in Melbourne, it follows a group of neo-Nazi skinheads and their racist behaviours towards the local Asian immigrants. It's an excellent film in terms of understanding the mindset of the skinheads and their victims, and has some almost breathless, I remember my friend remarking after we watched it together many moons ago, him saying that he didn't breathe during the whole of one particular fight/chase scene. So great performance from Russell Crowe. So I commend that film to you. Anyway, why am I talking about skinheads? Well, it's because Prince Harry is taking us to his skinhead phase. He's continuing with his recollections from school, and he talks about corridor cricket and playing that. And then there's a rather strange leap from corridor cricket to where he states, "Someone suggested that my hair was a complete disaster." Now, Harry, have you not been on the ganja again and you're mixing up what people are telling you now with back then? Possibly. Apparently, someone described it as like grass on the moors. Well, what can be done? Let me have a go at it. You? Yeah, let me shave it off. And lo and behold, somebody got some clippers, pushed him into a chair, and then he saw all of his ginger locks. Described as like red volcanoes seen from a plane. And he looked in the mirror and screamed in horror, with his mates all laughing at him. And therefore he ran up to see his brother. Not that there was anything that his brother could actually do, but he just laughed at him. He didn't tell him to calm down, he just sat there chuckling at him, and then asked him, "What on earth have you done?" And then, of course, he ended up on the front page of the tabloids with his new haircut and the headline, "Harry the Skinhead." Harry then wonders how they knew about it and said that a schoolmate must have told the papers. He said there was no actual photo, they just improvised with a computer-generated version. And he didn't think it could get worse, but after that, there was the same newspaper, but put him on the front page, this time with regard to an accident. And he'd broken a bone in his thumb playing rugby, but the way the papers made it out was to suggest that he was on life support. Now, interesting again, that shows the sensitivity of Harry here. He says it was bad taste under any circumstances, but a little more than a year after Mummy's alleged accident. Come on, fellas. Notice again the reference of alleged accident, how he just does not accept that that is the case. Already we have this recurrent theme, 46 pages into the publication, about how his mother was offed, that he struggled to accept that she's gone. That's understandable, but he doesn't regard that it was an accident. And he then reverts to talking about the press once again, and explaining that basically, although he dealt with the press all his life, they never actually singled him out. And apparently there was an agreement to leave him alone, but he now regarded this agreement as having expired because there he was plastered all over the front page. And he read the article and thought to himself, my existence is just fun and games to these people. I wasn't a human being. Again, is this really the thought process of a 14-year-old boy who thinks to himself, they don't regard me as a human being? I should imagine that many 14-year-olds would just look at it and go, comes with the territory, I'm famous, gosh, they're all arseholes, and then be thinking about which hot matron he wants to bang. rather than necessarily thinking to himself, oh, I wasn't human. Harry doesn't strike me as the most sort of self-reflecting individual. He strikes me as quite superficial, easily distracted by things, and consequently, these repeated examples of, they didn't treat me as human, they didn't see me as human. Again, I think this is today's Harry infecting the views of yesterday's Harry. He talks about how they were mocking him and they were effectively torturing a child. And he explains that his father's office lodged a formal complaint, demanded an apology, and accused the paper of bullying his son. And basically, the paper told his father where to go. And this is quite entertaining. Before trying to move on with my life, I took one last look at the article. Of all the things that surprised me about it, the truly flabbergasting thing was the absolutely shitty writing. I was a poor student, a dreadful writer, and yet I had enough education to recognise that this right here was a masterclass in illiteracy. Well, one wonders if he actually did, or whether somebody's pointed this out for him. And basically, he then goes through the article, pointing out its errors. And he says that the journalist was a young journalist whose career probably wouldn't carry on as a journalist much longer. So he soon dismisses it. Then he turns on to the fact of him being labelled as the naughty one. That he was viewed as naughty, but he didn't want to be. He wanted to be good. He wanted to work hard. He explains that the whole Commonwealth was aware of his academic struggles, which were largely due to being overmatched at Eton. And then he says, but no one ever discussed the other probable cause. What could this be? Yes, once again, mummy. And basically he says that he couldn't concentrate. He was fending off dark thoughts, fond memories, and he found that certain instances of sitting quietly with a book freaked him out, so he avoided doing so. And he said that it appears that his memory had been spotty since his mother disappeared, and it was easier not to remember because memory equaled grief. And he says he remembers being good at some things, such as reciting long passages from Ace Ventura and The Lion King. Well, that's bound to come in handy. And he talks about those difficulties. And he said this was a problem in that he went out of his way to avoid books. And his father didn't just enjoy books, they exalted them. And he then talks about his father peppering oration with quotations from Hamlet, Macbeth, Othello, The Tempest, The Merchant of Venice. But of course, he felt that it upset his father that he was Shakespeare-less, but he didn't want to engage with it. So, for instance, he opened Hamlet. Lonely prince obsessed with dead parent, watches remaining parent fall in love with their parent's usurper. I slammed it shut, no thank you. Now, is this an individual that really is so troubled in relation to his mother's death? Or is this just somebody who uses it again and again and again to elicit sympathy? You can be the judge of that as I continue to wade through. But so far, what has dominated this publication? Two things: his hatred of the press and the loss of his mother. There's some japery thrown in around the edges, a little bit about the involvement of Camilla. William appears here and there. With his father, so far you recall that it was said that he wouldn't go too hard on Charles, and although we're only part way through, so far Charles has sort of been seen as a distant parent but trying to do his best, so he hasn't really been slammed too much. It wasn't even particularly slammed in relation to his involvement with Camilla. We'll see if perhaps that alters later on. And he explained that His father was spending a lot of time at Highgrove, and because it was just down the road from Stratford, he would take him to see plays, but Harry found all of that torture, and he didn't understand most of what was going on, and he said that a lot of it just reminded him of the loss of his mother. And he explained that the one piece of literature that he did enjoy was the American novel of Mice and Men. And he states, unlike Shakespeare, Steinbeck didn't need a translator. He wrote in plain, simple vernacular. Better yet, he kept it tight. Of Mice and Men, a brisk 150 pages. So we can see Harry really isn't the academic. He doesn't want to read anything that makes him have to think. He doesn't want to read anything that is laborious in terms of working it out. And moreover, he doesn't want it to go on for too long. He explains he found the plot diverting, and consequently, he said that he wanted to share the book with William, but he was still pretending not to know him. Painting again a picture of a lonely prince, and if all of this is accurate, that he was struggling to deal with Eton, he didn't enjoy his schooling, he had been taken apart from his best friend Henner's, that he had a distant father, his brother wasn't wanting to know him at this juncture, you can see how resentment would be fostered, and you can also see just what easy prey he would be for the narcissist at a later juncture. We'll park it just here, but then Harry's about to go on his travels again. Join me in the next video.